President Donald Trump said recently at a rally in Florida that Sweden has been having problems with immigrants, which in my view isn't really a controversial comment. But the problems with his words is that nothing had happened that night in Sweden.
You look at what's happening in Germany. You look at what's happening last night in Sweden. Sweden. Who would believe this? Sweden. They took in large numbers. They're having problems like they never thought possible.
None of the usual car burnings and fights with the police had occurred. No terror bombings either. But mainstream media all started spluttering with joy over being able to point out this very minor error. So Trump in a tweet referenced to an old Fox News segment with Tucker Carlson and the documentary filmer Ami Horowitz, in which they spoke about the problem Sweden is having with integrating our gigantic amount of immigrants. But what followed was a combination of unbelievably irritating, frightening, and infuriating tweets spliced together with tacky news reporting. Under the hashtag Last Night in Sweden, people in the US and in Sweden began to gloat about Trump's slip-up. Now, I usually don't give a shit when the Sharia-defending feminists or self-hating white cucks or race-baiting Black Lives Matter supporters get moist over feeling like they're having a taste of victory, for once, no matter how small or imagined it might be. But the part about this that is so disgusting is that these people completely or totally deny that there is any problems whatsoever in Sweden. People wrote to President Trump not only making fun over him, which he's a big boy, I think he can handle it, but they also bragged and blatantly lied about this country. Some of my fellow countrymen are, for instance, bragging about our healthcare. Okay, so let's get this straight once and for all of you out there who is still feeling the burn. Our healthcare system is a fucking mess. Alright? You people got that? Now, I have no idea why these social justice warriors who very suddenly became national exceptionalists would even go down this rickety road. We have patients dying since they're being sent home prematurely from our Swedish hospitals because Sweden has the least hospital beds in all of Europe. These dead patients also include babies, by the way. Since several years back, you for instance would need to wait a shorter period of time in Albania than in Sweden in order to receive healthcare. So feel the burn. You morons. Your socialist utopia is a lie, and all of you should be very much ashamed of yourself for writing bullshit about our great healthcare on Twitter, and instead actually doing something to improve it. Donate blood, sign petitions to support our understaffed and overworked medical personnel. And if none of that is possible for you people to do, then at least have the common decency of shutting the fuck up. I've actually worked with caring for the elderly, so I know how wonderful it is to grow old in this country as well. And I can tell you that you better die quickly. Don't grow old. I remember being told to roll over this elderly lady on her side who had a really bad pressure ulcer on her lower back. It looked like a gunshot wound. But I was just told to do it because there wasn't enough time, enough people, enough money. That was somebody's mother. That was somebody's wife. So you people who are bragging about our healthcare system, you can try to explain to me how come we're paying buckets of cash in the form of taxes and we still treat our elderly this way. That's the people who built this country. We're rolling them over on the side and letting them lie there. It's a complete disgrace, and it isn't the staff's fault either. Nurses, for instance, are quitting en masse or moving because of ridiculous salaries, inhumane work hours, and complete idiots steering from up top. So you might want to hear what they have to say about our flawless healthcare before stroking your dicks on Twitter about how awesome we are at everything. Nurses who love their jobs are quitting because they just can't take it anymore. It's too much. They work to the point of becoming sick themselves. We have articles everywhere about this. Our medical care is in fact so awesome that an increasing amount of Swedes, a 31% increase since 2013 in fact, are now getting private health insurance instead of public. A growing number of Swedes are now paying the extra buck to not get stuck waiting in the back of a several-year-long line to receive care, while having cancer tumors feasting on their body's previously healthy tissue during the entire time.
But it isn't that bad. Waiting 18 months to meet a specialist, that is normal.
No, it isn't. Sweden is matched to Serbia in having waiting lines that long. Fucking Serbia. A country currently ranked number 8 in the World Misery Index, a country struggling with sky-high unemployment, extensive amounts of corruption, and staggering national debt. It isn't normal.
But it has always been like this.
I'm beyond sick of hearing these comments always coming from these politically correct assholes.
But it isn't that bad. But it isn't that bad.
These are the types of people that have been accusing me of hating Sweden since I criticize how it's being managed. But if you love someone or something, you don't show it by letting it ruin itself. Tough love is a great thing, and in order to fix a problem, you first need to acknowledge that it exists. So this collection of tweets was just depressing as hell to read, because they're not only lying about our healthcare either. These butthurt crybabies are also defending our internationally acknowledged massive failure with integrating immigrants. I have talked about this so many times now that I can't go through it again. I'm done. I'm done with this shit. But no, immigrants didn't make Sweden great. Sweden didn't need immigration to become the great country that is today. And immigration isn't profitable for Sweden. You people have to stop saying that. Immigrants from within Europe with highly valued skill sets have contributed to Sweden, sure. But nearly analphabetic immigrants from the Middle East and Africa have not made Sweden great. This should be obvious to most people. We have a knowledge economy. If you've been in school for 2 years and you come to Sweden, you're not really going to be that profitable for the country. Do you understand me? There are exceptions, of course. I mean, we can throw out this story about an Iranian doctor who is doing very well for herself in Sweden, and she's helping the country, and it's all very well and good. You know, I'm in support of that. That's beside the fucking point. The people in the end who made Sweden great were ethnic Swedes. You have to start dealing with this. You need to handle that fact. Sweden has historically been extremely homogeneous, and the whole multicultural insanity is, thankfully for us, a rather new idea, and we have only been sodomizing ourselves and our future generations since about the 1970s. You see, Sweden was great way before we started importing low-skilled labor from the most illiterate parts of Africa. It's very shocking, but it's true. And I also know that it's unbearable for you people who tweet this garbage to hear this, but I don't give a shit. I'm going to call you out on the intellectual cancer that you are squirting all over the place. I have made an almost half-an-hour-long video which in detail debunks this myth, the myth about how profitable it is with mass immigration for Sweden. It is such a lie at this point that very soon it's only going to be equal to the wage gap, patriarchy, or white privilege when it comes to lack of factual evidence and stupidity. No serious economist believes in low-skilled labor from the Middle East or Africa being profitable for a highly developed country such as Sweden. So, against the advice of all serious experts, we decided to bring people from war-torn countries up to a cold-ass country in the north, because compassion, or something. In doing this, we also ignored the advice from every single expert on the topic who said that we should put all of our resources on the spot. Instead, we just mass imported them to Sweden. So Norway is preparing itself for the risk of Sweden collapsing in case of pretty much any other party except the Sweden Democrats winning the 2018 election and undoing the brakes on immigration. They are seriously worried that some of our new Swedes that we take in are going to then want to become new Norwegians instead after the collapse of the Swedish welfare state. So how does that feel to know? Don't you people want to tweet about that? About how our own neighbors are increasing their border security because they're afraid of what might happen if our multicultural clusterfuck goes even more south? You don't want to tweet about that? Norway realizes that they're going to be having their backs against the wall, so they of course worry about what the hell we're doing. Sorry, Norway, but I am not currently at the wheel. Humpty Dumpty and his feminist government is commandeering this country. But our neighbors have always been worried about us. You know? I mean, the ancestors of the people living on the slab of land that today is the Great Republic of Finland were most likely pretty worried about being placed between Sweden and Russia back in the day. Och danskjävlarna har man fan aldrig kunnat lita på.
Här, Danmark. Utskitet av kalk och vatten. Dansk. Jävlar. Dansk jävlar!
Because this is the typical strategy. These social justice warrior Swedes will dust off their previously unread history books and go far back in our history so that they just might find some vague incident which can then be used to excuse our much more serious current problems.
Look, this happened back in the 16th century.
In 1951, for instance, there was a riot in a park in central Stockholm, and a bunch of young people had made a habit out of hanging around in the park and starting problems. So cops were sent in to clean it up, and the total cost for sending in the police was about 170,000 Swedish crowns, that is about 19,000 US dollars. At the riot in the Swedish inner-city suburb Husby in 2013, the cost just for the police presence was 10 million Swedish crowns. That is $1,120,000. Then you also had the additional costs for destroyed property, among many things, the over 100 cars that were set on fire by rioters. Taking single isolated incidents during the 1950s, 60s, 70s, 80s to prove a point is retarded. It's the frequency of our suburban riots that is messed up. It's not the fact that riots occur, but these constant excuses.
It isn't that bad. We've always had riots in Sweden. It's always been like this.
We haven't always had gangs of 30 young men attacking cops in our suburbs to the point of making the police feel so threatened that they shot back at the men using live rounds with intention of hitting them. We haven't always had routes in public transportation shut down because the drivers were afraid to get hit by firebombs and they refused to drive there. And the burning hatred for the police is also new. The police in the city of Malmö has, for instance, since 2011 had 7 attacks aimed at their stations with everything from firearms to explosives. Has that also always been the case in Sweden? Thugs setting fire to cars to lure out firefighters so that they can attack them using large-ass rocks. Is that also business as usual in our northern utopia? You seem to have such insight into our history, please educate me on the matter. Because I'm not really that old, I can't remember this shit happening on a weekly basis when I grew up. But hey, you know, let's not be alarmist. Let's not feed the far right. It isn't that bad. I'm gonna tell you what I think we should do. Let's all of us hope that we won't anywhere in Europe be forced to see what bad actually looks like according to these politically correct idiots. Because if this isn't that bad, I don't want to see what bad looks like. Take care. Just a footnote here. A lot of you guys have been asking me why I don't get more views and I don't get more subscribers, and I'm just terrible at self-promotion. So any help with that is much appreciated. I'm trying to get better at it, but I'm a pretty introverted person. A lot of you guys have also been saying that you're not getting updated when I upload a new video. So click the notification symbol up in the right corner and hopefully you won't miss my next upload.